Hi, this is Mish with Roarks ReTreaT, and today we're making apple butter. We don't have a copper kettle, so we used my big 40-quart stock pot and put pennies in the bottom of it. Pennies add a different flavor and help keep the apple butter from sticking. So I have a recipe that I got from my dad. We've got the applesauce measured out already. And I forgot the spatula. So my son got me a spatula. So I've got all the applesauce measured out already. And we made our applesauce from Macintosh Apples. Our recipe calls for 4 cups of sugar. We use pure cane sugar. Calls for 24 ounces of Red Hot. I know it sounds weird, but it's really good. Then it calls for 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon. And then a teaspoon of ground cloves. And a half a teaspoon of ground allspice. Now we have a wonderful camp kitchen stove that we use right here, and basically we're gonna light it up and we're gonna start stirring and just keep stirring pretty frequently until it turns into apple butter. We'll check back in on it here in a few minutes. Once the stove's lit, we use a large wooden spoon to stir with. If we had a copper kettle, we'd actually have a paddle that works great. You just mix it all in real good. You get a nice pink color to it from the Red Hots. You just want to make sure everything's all broke up in there and mixed in so it can start to melt. Make sure you keep your fire kind of low though, because you can scorch your applesauce or your apple butter very easily, or burn it and then you ruin a whole batch. So we're gonna let that sit there for a little bit and start to warm up and boil.
Okay, we're about 4 hours into the apple butter. You can see it slowly boiling off there, just boiling off the moisture. We keep stirring it every couple minutes just to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom, but just a slow simmer, just enough to get it to release that extra steam and boil itself down and thicken up. Okay, so we're about 5.5, 6 hours in, probably closer to 6 hours. This is what we've got now. Been stirring it probably, I don't know, every 10-15 minutes, maybe less. But as you can see, there's not a whole lot of water left on it. So that's boiled off. We've reduced it down by about half. They say the way that you can tell apple butter is done is if you stick it in and it sticks to the spoon and doesn't drip off. There's also another method to it. Put it on a plate, basically in a spot on a plate, and see if it drips off. We're gonna let this go for probably another, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, give or take, and we'll probably start canning it at that point. So you'll be around for the canning stage of it. Alright, we're back. The apple butter is done. We're going to use a boil canner to can our apple butter. It doesn't take very long, about 10 minutes. So it goes pretty quick, so we just want to make sure that it gets done. I'm going to put that over here on the camp stove, and then I'm going to try not to burn myself moving this big thing over here. Okay, well, alright, at least I didn't burn myself.
Rehand this in.
Sure. So then what we're going to do is, there's a nifty funnel. We got our pint jars, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ladle our apple butter into the jars. Discovered last night in doing this, the bottom of the funnel is the perfect height, or the perfect fill amount for this.
You gotta make sure that there's no apple butter on the seal, on the top of the jar, or it will not seal. You always want to check your jars when you wash them to make sure that there's no cracks or chips around the ring of them, because if there is, it will not seal.
Since there are copper pennies in the bottom of this pot, you want to be careful not to include any pennies. Don't be like me. Yesterday, I'm pretty sure I gave away about $1 in pennies.
Is that no more in the jar, in the thing?
I'll talk in pennies.
Well, I think we can get one out of there. We'll dump it in with the jar that's in the kitchen. We won't even put a seal on it. We'll just dump it in with the other jar. Because I think we've got a half jar in there.
Okay, so this jar is going to go in our fridge, but the other jars, 9 pints of it, we're going to put in the boil canner. I'm going to come over here and we'll let Mish load that up.
If your boil canner has a lifter like this one does, make sure you do it even. Otherwise, you're going to flip it out and knock all your jars out and break them everything. I've done that before, and it really sucks. It goes down in there like that. Now we put water in it. Hot water in it, just about an inch over the top. Once it comes to a full rolling boil, then we let it boil for 10 minutes.
So now we've got our pressure canner loaded, filled with water. It's on to boil. So once it gets to a good rolling boil, it'll be 10 minutes in the boiler canner, and eventually the jars will all seal. We'll pull them out, put them over here on the towel, and everything will get sealed up. and we'll have 9 pints of apple butter. It totals 24 pints of applesauce for us, and it'll be, I believe, 33 pints of apple butter out of 3 bushels of apples. So, okay, so the canner's going. We've got a rolling boil on the canner. So what we have to do, and let me take the top off and show you what a rolling boil looks like, because there's not very many people that are aware. So rolling boil looks remarkably like that, where the water is literally rolling. See what it looks like? So what we're going to do is we're going to set our timer now for 10 minutes, and we're going to let this boil for 10 minutes. I'll put the lid back on kind of cockeyed so that it doesn't shoot off, because it'll do that. But we'll let that run for 10 minutes, then we'll come back and we'll take everything out and we'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so the boiler canner finished. It's run for 10 minutes, and Misha's going to go ahead and take the jars out. We're going to put them over here on the table so that they can cool and seal, hopefully.
But after you shut the fire off on your canner, you're going to want to let it sit for a couple of minutes so that it quits actually boiling. I tip them to make sure that the water drains off the top of them.
There's one sealed.
And that is a beautiful sound. There's 2.
We've started doing this outside for the simple fact that it heats the house up so much. So we have this nifty little camp stove. We go ahead and do all of this outside. Keeps the house from getting too hot.
And it lets us enjoy our fire pit.
It does. There's another one sealed. There's another one sealed. There we have 9 pints of apple butter, totaling 35 pints of apple butter and 24 pints of applesauce from 3 bushels of apples. Macintosh apples at that. Check the description for the recipes for our apple butter and the links to the tools used to make the applesauce to make the apple butter. It's Phil from Roarks ReTreaT.
This is Mish from Roarks ReTreaT. One last note, if you have a place where you can leave your canner sit overnight for the water to completely cool before you drain it, that's your best case scenario. It prevents you from the water splashing up in the sink and burning you.
Thanks for watching, and as always, happy homesteading.